Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the I Measure You Research Review. This week I am fortunate enough to be joined by Wouter Hoogkamer from the University of Massachusetts. Wouter, how are you doing? I appreciate you getting up early in the morning to speak to me today.
Sure. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's a little misty outside, but it's a good day, I think.
Fantastic. We'll dive straight into the questions. How about you tell us a little bit more about who you are, what you do, and your journey to your current role at the University of Massachusetts?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an assistant professor in a kinesiology department, and mainly teaching neuromechanics, biomechanics classes, and my research focuses on basically biomechanics and energetics of human walking and running. And within that, mainly focus on running footwear right now. But at the same time, sort of trying to get at those fundamental questions to better understand like I said, biomechanics and energetics of human locomotion. And it was quite a journey to get there. So I'm from the Netherlands, started out with an undergraduate in civil engineering, but at the same time spent a lot of time on the track and joined the track and field and the running stuff. And at some point, even I've got my master's in civil engineering and working in industry as a civil engineer. But I just couldn't be satisfied because I always was thinking about running and reading books about running injuries and training physiology and everything. And then I just did some good sort of thinking about future goals and decided to go back to school and got another master's in human movement sciences in Amsterdam. And then through that program, where with my engineering background, I was doing pretty well on the biomechanics side, obviously, and I got this option to do my thesis abroad. And I was like, well, I want to study running biomechanics. So an obvious place to go was Colorado to work with Roger Crum at University of Colorado Boulder. And that was really confirmation that I had made the right decision to leave my job in industry and work in academia. And so after those 6 months, which were great, I went back to Europe, did my PhD in Belgium, focused a little bit more on the neurological side of things, working with patient populations. And then after that, got an opportunity to go back to Colorado for a postdoc. There I had another great time for 5 years, working with different companies in running and cycling on great projects, and do some of the nice research around the 2-hour marathon. And then while that postdoc was sort of wrapping up, started interviewing different places, but eventually I decided that UMass was going to be the place for me, and I've been there since 2 years now, and it's going great. So
fantastic. As we've discussed off camera, I think the journey, I'm seeing the journey from engineering into human performance biomechanics more and more often. I think it's fantastic. I think it's definitely a route that I wish I'd taken when I was studying sports science, or at least had more exposure to some of the more basic engineering principles. But anyhow, I wanted to speak to you about some of your research, obviously, in particular the research into running footwear. Now, obviously, you've worked with some really well-renowned brands, sports brands, to test and research footwear. Can you start by telling us a little bit more about what that research has actually entailed?
Yeah, so it's an interesting field of research, and there's usually sort of like 3 windows to it, where often it starts out for a collaboration with the company often starts out with just sort of validating their products and sort of put them through the test. And specifically for running footwear, that's interesting because again, as an engineer, you can mechanically test footwear, but it really comes down is how does the product behave on the people's feet and how do people respond to the product, right? So there's always a big window of that specific sort of validation work, and then at the same time there is this sort of long-term innovative work where you sort of see like, okay, what would be feasible 5-10 years from today, rather than just testing shoes that's going to be on the market in a year. We're looking further down the road into concepts. And I think that the third window for me is the most exciting, where it's nice that if we want to answer a more fundamental question, sort of independent of product, we can sort of work with the company and say like, hey, could you build us a shoe that has this but doesn't have that, so that we can specifically find out what this is doing. So that's really the fun side, and I mean all of it is fun. It's also nice to work with these companies for students. I know several students both from Colorado before, and hopefully here soon, where they then after they graduate get jobs at companies too. So it's a nice pipeline in that way.
That sounds great. And just so I can understand the way in which these research projects work, and you touched on it briefly there. Is it very much a case of the brands approaching you at the university with research questions, or the need to test a new product, and then you as a researcher with your colleagues just dive into that and explore it a little bit further? Or would you as a researcher go to the brand and say, hey, look, we're open to looking into X, Y, and Z. Can we get involved?
Yeah, no, it's a little bit of both. Where, like I said, it often starts out with the company saying like, we want to know this. How can we learn about this? And I say, well, we need to build this experiment around it and find it out, and always go data driven. But then I think the other part is where usually they start asking questions where like, okay, well, that's a way bigger question, right? We need to go back to the basics and find this out, and then we can sort of think about is like, how would we address this? And often again work with them, say like, can you build us this specific type of footwear and do it. And at the same time, there it's nice for the students working on these projects where they can do this testing for the company, but at the same time get to start thinking and maybe work on their master's thesis, which is closely related to it, but not totally the same. But they have funded through the industry partners. So that opens a lot of avenues to do that kind of work in that way. And but like I said, most often the companies first reach out to me, sort of saying like, hey, we saw what you did before with other companies. We have a similar question. Can we do that? And then if it works well, and we like each other, and we get to do interesting things, then we sort of build upon that and make bigger impacts.
That's fantastic. And how important do you think it is these days for these big running brands to actually go to universities and create partnerships and research their product to ensure that it kind of does what it says on the tin, so to speak?
Yeah, I think that's definitely important. I mean, it's sort of it always has been around in some ways with specifically for footwear companies in different ways. But it's there's two sides of it, I think, for them. That one is sort of that sort of, I don't really care whether it costs $100 to make a shoe or not. So I never have that deliverable working on a shoe. I just want to see how it works and if it works well. And they value that too. And so I think that's important for them. The other thing is like, yeah, their innovation engineers or even the people in the more the biomechanical labs or the physiological labs don't always have the time to stay up to date or to think a lot about things, because they're always sort of working on testing other new things and going through that. So I think, yeah, what we see most often, and I think that's how it should be, is that all of these companies have their different industry collaborators, where they either are on their scientific board in some way, or run tests, or consult with them. And like I said, for me, that's great, because also the students get opportunities to get exposed, and hopefully eventually get into those same positions.
No, absolutely. Now, obviously, this year's been tough for many reasons, but most prominently COVID-19. And I know, exclusive of COVID-19, over the past few years, there's been a real desire to take research away from the lab into the field. Now, obviously, that requires different technologies than maybe you would use in the lab. So, could you talk to me a little bit about what technology you have implemented or you're looking to implement to answer some of your key research questions in the field?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think for us that event, sort of this whole COVID-driven move to outdoor testing, sort of coincided with their own passion for trail running. So we were already sort of going in that direction, but then we just got sort of jump started, and had, because we couldn't test indoors for a while. So we then started looking into IMU based research. So that's often how we still test footwear either way, because there's a lot of traditional measures about impact and pronation that you can get at. So yeah, we made a quick switch, and sort of got some devices, and started playing with these. Again, starting easy with sort of the traditional measures, but now starting to build upon that, integrated, and like I said, sort of try to apply it to trail running. We did a lot of work in, like I said, in Colorado about the 2-hour marathon, which is basically as flat as a race course could be, and as controlled as possible. So just to make the next step. I mean, that's also the good thing about that one. It's easy to test on a treadmill, but like when we're talking about the trail racing, that is definitely something that you wouldn't be able to easily mimic on a treadmill. So we like to go outside and quantify that, and then if we really need, we can then reproduce it in a lab in a way. But yeah, that's definitely something that I did not anticipate coming to UMass 2 years ago that I would be doing. But yeah, I think the technology is there. And again, both with COVID and because of the interest in trail running, we're definitely going into that direction.
That sounds great. And just more generally, how difficult is it to strike a balance between your gold standard lab measures, where everything's very well controlled, and more ecologically valid measures, let's say, in the field, where, of course, you mentioned the 2-hour marathon project, where you try and control things as much as possible, but the very nature of conducting research outdoors is that it's not that controlled. So how difficult is it to strike that balance?
Yeah, no, that's the biggest challenge. And again, with the research we're doing, like the most of the running brands sell shoes not just for treadmill running either, right? So we always have been using the lab to control things, but we're now ready to go outside, and at the same time, like I said, we can sometimes just measure sort of what is one aspect of what is going on during outdoor running, and then try to mimic that in the lab in a controlled way, and then measure more sensible measures with less resolution that wouldn't be able to be picked up outside, or where there's interactions between running speed and biomechanics or energetics. If we can measure the biomechanics, and then we can sort of cue people to do that inside on the treadmill while we control speed. Now it's way easier to measure energetics, and I think that the energetics is we're still. I mean, obviously there is wearables and portable oxygen analyzers, but then, like I said, the trick is when you don't have people on a paced treadmill, they're going to be running at different velocities. So again, something that we're still struggling with and trying to figure out.
Absolutely. And my next question, I mean, research and development in sport is usually revolves around performance enhancement or injury risk reduction. Do you see these two pathways being mutually exclusive, or can improving footwear to enhance performance also mitigate injury risk and vice versa? Do they work together, do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the vice versa one is the most clear, right? If I'm injured on race day, I won't be performing on race day. So that's definitely part of it. And then the same for footwear wise. I mean, with these recent super shoes, which are built for performance, we also hear stories. And again, these are stories and anecdotes because I don't think there's any evidence for it about reduced muscle soreness days after hard training sessions and things like that. At the same time, we also hear stories of reduced ability of these super shoes that might then sort of trigger injury. So like I said, on neither of these aspects, there's any scientific evidence right now. So you have to be careful with these stories. But I think overall, specifically for footwear, what we have seen in this aspect is that over the past 5 years or probably even 10 years, shoes have become more cushioned, and like before that there was always the problem that if you make a traditional foam softer, it also dissipates more energy. So that was a trade-off. And now with these newer foams that like Adidas started with the Boost shoe, and then Nike with the Vaporfly, and now every brand has their own supercritical foam in some way that allows the company to build shoes that are more cushioned, but don't dissipate the energy. And what we do know from the research is that some cushioning is also good for performance, not just for marathon running, which takes very long, but even for shorter distances. There's just a little bit bounce that you can get out of a shoe that you then don't need to actively do with your muscles, so it can save you energy. So just around that I definitely see a crossover. At the same time, I also working with all these companies. Sometimes a shoe company reaches out for me to do testing on injuries, and then I'm like, well, I'm really on the performance side, and I wouldn't be saying that I'm an expert on the injury side. So if it's an existing collaborator, we can definitely combine it. But if somebody just reaches out, and I must say that I'm too busy doing other stuff, and I have to focus on my area of expertise as well. So that being said, yeah, the injury side of things is just also the most complicated one in my perspective, because it's not just biomechanics that causes injuries. So it's something that is always around when working with footwear companies, but like I said, it's not my area of expertise, and I'm more excited about getting people to run faster than necessarily prevent injuries. I think healthy running is sort of in the middle there, where that is something that we all know, kind of like what a shoe should not do. So that's definitely a thing we focus on. But really, when you're talking to injury research, like I said, there's so many confounding factors that probably for the people in the field make that really exciting. But for me, that's sort of a place to not go too far into.
Of course, of course. And where do you see the running footwear research and development heading? I mean, how much further do you feel footwear technology can be taken?
Yeah, that's a hard question right now. I mean, if you had asked me that 10 years ago, I thought we were there, and then new developments came around, and people were able to integrate different aspects like the bending stiffness and the super foams, what I just talked about. So probably right now, I also would say like we're getting closely to saturation here, because a foam cannot be much better. And even, I mean, obviously, when you talk about the energy return, there is the upper limit of 100% energy return. So I think with the newest foams, in a way, you load them, you can be at, we had 87% for our study in the Nike shoe at that time. So theoretically, that wouldn't go beyond 100, and I don't think that foams will even get to 100. So we're getting to see the limits of that. But so I still think in the next few years we will see small progress with all of the concepts that sort of are in that Vaporfly shoe, which is a carbon fiber plate for stiffness, a super foam for energy return, and some way the geometry plays into that the plate actually helps, and because just a flat plate doesn't always help. So different companies going around these things differently might involve some gradual progress, but then probably 10 years from now, somebody just takes a whole other angle and comes up with something that we didn't think about, and that will result in a bigger jump. And then obviously the other big thing that's probably going to happen at some point in the future, but we have been saying that for a while now too, is sort of individualized 3D printed footwear where you could go and go either to the running store and run on a treadmill or run outside, and you use your smartphone to capture some or maybe a set of IMUs to capture your personal biomechanics. You upload it to the cloud, and they're gonna 3D print your personal shoe. Again, we have been saying that for a while, and we know we can print shoes now. Not all as great as traditionally made shoes, but probably we'll keep making progress there. And then at some point, we're going to realize that we don't know what the best shoe is for somebody. Again, coming back to the problem with healthy running and injury and performance. So I think there is where I still hope to make a lot of progress in the future, sort of finding out what are the best shoe properties for somebody of that body weight running at that speed with that particular heel strike or foot strike pattern. And then we can, if we can make those informed decisions, then we can start prescribing those, right? But right now we don't even know what is the best shoe for an individual. So to 3D print it for them is going to be another challenge then.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fascinating. And I mean, again, you touched upon it there, but what does the future look like for you when it comes to research? Are some of those questions ones that you're hoping or looking to answer personally, or are you going down a different pathway?
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of the directions we're going, sort of trying to find out what is best. But like I said, there's always the interactions between running form and running speed and body mass. But we're trying to go there, and we're trying to do that independent of footwear by playing around with the treadmill properties in a way that we can find out how these things are related. And then again, the trail running, we're still going into that. I talked about it as if we're doing it or have been doing it, but we're really just starting to do that stuff. So we will be looking into that in the near future more. And then, yeah, I think for me, it's always exciting to sort of combine really the product-driven sort of sports science together with some more fundamental insights into the motion of running and the relation between biomechanics and energetics, not just for running, but locomotion and even other tasks. So that's also what we're still exploring and will be doing in the future. So yeah, I'm gonna have a good time here in the lab and outside of the lab doing research.
Fantastic. And Wouter, if anyone listening wants to reach out to you or find out a little bit more about yourself, is there a best way for them to contact you? Maybe social media or email?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure my direct messages are open for anybody. If not, I will change that after our call. So on Twitter, you can either just Google my full name with Twitter, and you'll find it. But my Twitter handle is Wouters, which is basically based on my nickname from back in my track days in the Netherlands. Yeah, you can find me there, and you can also just shoot me an email. It's probably going to be disappearing in the vast amount of, but you can always do that. And like I said, the Twitter will probably be more standing out for me to actually notice.
Fantastic. Well, Wouter, thank you very much for joining me today. I do appreciate you taking the time out of your morning. And for those of you who are listening, if you want to catch up on more of our research reviews, please feel free to check out the YouTube page and also our website, where you'll find all of these articles and reviews published. But for now, Wouter, have a great day. Thank you very much. And for everyone else, I will see you again soon.